The stars over New Independence burned bright, but the colony itself was on the verge of darkness. Major Jack Donovan stood on the balcony of the command center, swirling a glass of deep crimson wine. Below, the colony's main thoroughfare bustled with men celebrating humanity's newfound alliance with the Zelvari. The reptilian species had arrived months ago, bearing technology generations ahead of Earth's. Faster-than-light engines, matter reconstruction, planetary defense grids, things that could catapult humanity into an era of dominance among the stars. And they had offered it freely, in exchange for trade and peace. It was too good to be true. Donovan had spent too many years in the Corps to believe in gifts without strings. Wars weren't won with kindness. They were won with leverage. And the Zelvari, despite their smooth words and diplomatic overtures, had the look of a species that understood that principle all too well. "Something wrong, sir?" Sergeant Mike Grizzly O'Reilly leaned against the railing beside him, his scarred hands wrapped around a beer bottle. Built like a wrecking ball and twice as stubborn, O'Reilly had survived more battles than should have been possible. Donovan took a sip of the wine, let the taste sit on his tongue. It was smooth, rich, almost too rich. "Yeah," he muttered, placing the glass down. "Something's off." The colony had been consuming Zelvari imports for weeks now. Wine, water, protein rations, all subtly enhanced with alien supplements designed to optimize human biology. Or so the scientists claimed. The problem was, soldiers like Donovan knew the oldest trick in the book. Poison never worked fast. It worked slow. You didn't kill an enemy with it in a day. You made them weak, dulled their edges, broke them down piece by piece until they collapsed under their own weight. Donovan turned toward the streets again, scanning the crowd. The men were in high spirits, but beneath the laughter, he saw the signs. A little too much sluggishness, the slight unsteadiness in the step of soldiers who should have been sharp. The reports had started trickling in, too. Reaction times dropping, minor injuries taking longer to heal, combat drills showing unexpected fatigue. "Get Captain Hayes," Donovan ordered, "and find Carter." O'Reilly gave a single nod and vanished into the crowd. Minutes later, Captain Thomas Hayes arrived, his flight suit half unzipped, a flask in his hand. "Sir, you've been flying patrols," Donovan said. "You notice anything odd?" Hayes took a swig, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Yeah, response times are down. The new recruits I could understand, but my veterans? Something's slowing them." Donovan exhaled sharply. The pieces were fitting together too well. Dr. William Carter arrived next, a data pad clutched in his hands. The bioengineer had been one of the leading voices pushing for integration with the Zelvari systems. Now his face was pale. "You ran tests," Donovan said. Carter nodded. "The enhancements they gave us. At first, they seemed beneficial, but I analyzed long-term effects. The compounds they introduced into our food, water, even the air, they're cumulative." He looked up, eyes grim. "It's shutting us down. Slower thought processing, muscle degradation, immune system suppression. The changes are subtle, but over time, they would make us inefficient, weak." A cold rage settled in Donovan's gut. The Zelvari weren't giving humanity a gift. They were preemptively declawing a predator before it could ever become a threat. The ground shook. An explosion rocked the far end of the colony, followed by the high-pitched scream of an alien energy weapon. The comms crackled to life with shouts. Enemy forces inside the perimeter. Civilians scrambling for shelter. They weren't waiting for the poison to finish its work. They were striking now. Donovan's sidearm was in his hand before the thought had fully formed. "O'Reilly, get every able-bodied Marine armed. Hayes, get your birds in the air." He turned to Carter. "Find a way to counteract this. Whatever it takes." The soldier and the scientist nodded and took off. Donovan marched toward the command center's armory, his heart hammering with the certainty of what was coming. The Zelvari had miscalculated. They had assumed humanity would crumble under their slow-killing toxin. But they had failed to understand one simple truth. Humans had spent millennia poisoning themselves. Radiation, alcohol, narcotics, pollutants. Every era of human history had been marked by exposure to things that should have killed them. And yet they had endured, adapted, thrived. The Zelvari wanted to make humans weaker? They had only given them an excuse to get stronger. The colony was burning. New independence
Plasma
burned
fire
bright,
streaked through the
but
sky.
the colony
as
itself
Zelvari
was on the
gunships
verge of
swept over
darkness.
new independence.
Major Jack
Their weapons
Donovan
tearing
stood
through
on the
buildings
balcony
and
of the
defensive
command
turrets.
center,
The
swirling a
streets were
glass
littered
of
with
deep
bodies.
crimson wine.
Civilians
Below,
who hadn't made it to the bunkers.
colony's main thoroughfare
Marines who had
bustled
fought
with
and
men
fallen.
celebrating humanity's
The air reeked of
newfound
scorched
alliance
metal and ozone.
with the Zelvari.
But amid the chaos,
a reptilian
Major
species
Jack
had
Donovan
arrived
and
months
his
ago,
men were still standing,
bearing technology
They were
generations ahead of Earth.
Sergeant O'Reilly knelt
Faster than
behind
light
a collapsed
engines,
barricade,
matter reconstruction,
feeding power
planetary
cells
defense
into a
grids,
scavenged Zelvari
things
rifle
that could catapult humanity
alien weapon
into
had
an
been
era
built
of
for
dominance
something with 3
among the
fingers.
stars. But
And they had
O'Reilly's
offered
brute
it freely,
strength made
in
up for the
exchange
offer
for
trade
trip.
and peace.
He grinned through bloody
It was too
teeth.
good to be true.
Hell of a party, sir.
Donovan had spent
Donovan
too many
fired
years in
too
the
precise
Corps to
rounds
believe
from
in
his
gifts
sidearm
without strings.
dropping a reptilian
Wars
soldier
weren't
mid-stride.
won with kindness.
Stay focused.
They were won with
Captain
leverage.
Hayes' voice
And
crackled
the
over the
Zelvari,
comm major.
Despite their
I need
smooth
the air
words
clear.
and diplomatic
My
overtures,
birds can't get
had the
close
look
with
of a
those
species
gunships
that
hovering over the
understood
main
that
square.
principle all too
Donovan
well.
ducked as a
Something
bolt
wrong,
of
sir.
plasma sizzled
Sergeant
past his
Mike
head.
Grizzly
O'Reilly leaned against the
Think you
railing
can bring one
beside
of
him.
those bastards
His
down.
scarred hands wrapped
sergeant
around a beer
glanced at
bottle,
his newly acquired
built like a
weapon,
wrecking ball
then
and twice
as
a
a
burning
stubborn
vehicle wreck.
O'Reilly had survived more
Just
battles
need something
than should have been
stupid.
possible.
Donovan took a sip of the wine.
He and
Let
the
the
remaining
taste sit
Marines
on his
laid
tongue.
down suppressive
It was
fire
smooth, rich,
as O'Reilly
almost too
sprinted
rich.
toward the wreckage.
Yeah,
he clambered
he muttered,
onto the husk,
placing
of
the
the
glass
transport,
down.
balancing
Something's
as
off.
he aimed the
The
Zelvari
colony had
rifle
been
skyward.
consuming
He
Zelvari
squeezed the
imports
trigger,
for weeks now,
and a bolt of
wine,
green energy
water,
erupted
protein
from the
rations,
barrels, all
hitting a
subtly
passing
enhanced with
gunship's
alien
underside,
supplements designed
the craft
to
wobbled,
optimize human
smoking.
biology.
But it wasn't
Or
enough.
so the scientists
O'Reilly
claimed.
cursed.
The problem
All right,
was
Plan B.
soldiers like Donovan
He
knew
reached
the
down,
oldest trick in the book,
grabbed a grenade,
poison never
hurled
worked
it into
fast.
the air.
It
As
worked
the
slow.
gunship passed
He
overhead.
didn't kill an enemy
At the last
with it in a
second,
day. He
you
shot
made
the
them
grenade
weak,
mid-flight,
dulled their
it
edges,
exploded, broke them
sending
down
shrapnel
piece
and
by
raw
piece
force
until
straight
they collapsed
into
under
their
their
damaged
own
craft's
weight.
engines.
Donovan turned
The
toward
ship
the
lurched
streets again,
sideways,
scanning the
plummeting
crowd.
into a nearby
The men
building.
were in high spirits.
Hayes hooped over the
But
comms.
beneath the laughter,
That's what I needed.
he saw the signs.
Stand by.
A little too much
Above,
sluggishness.
The sky roared
slight
as three
unsteadiness
surviving
in the
human
step of
fighters
soldiers
banked
who
hard
should have been
and
sharp.
swooped into
The
formation.
reports had started
The
trickling
pilots,
in, too.
no longer pinned down,
Reaction times dropping.
executed a
Minor
textbook
injuries
strafing
taking
run,
longer to heal.
unleashing a
Combat
barrage of
drills
missiles,
into
showing
the Zelvari
unexpected
ranks.
fatigue. For a
Yet
brief
Captain
moment,
Hayes,
humanity
Donovan
had
ordered,
air superiority
and find
again.
Carter.
But Donovan
O'Reilly
knew it
gave a
wasn't
single
enough.
nod.
They
and
weren't
vanished
just
into the
outnumbered.
crowd.
They were operating
Minutes
at
later,
half strength.
Captain Thomas
The
Hayes
poison had
arrived.
sapped him. His flight
Made
suit
them half
slower,
unzipped.
weaker. A flask
Even
in
now,
his hand. He could feel
Sir,
it dulling his
he's been flying
reflexes,
patrols,
making every movement
Donovan
just
said.
a fraction heavier.
You notice anything
the
odd?
Zelvari had planned
Hayes
this
took
too
a
well.
swig.
Unless
his
they
mouth
adapted.
with the back of his
Dr.
hand.
Carter's voice
Yeah.
came through.
Response
breathless.
times are down.
Major,
The new recruits
I think
I
I
can
have something.
understand.
But
Tell
my
me you
veterans,
can fix this.
something slowing
Donovan
them.
demanded.
Donovan
No,
exhaled, Carter
sharply.
admitted. The
But I
pieces
can
were
use it.
fitting together too
The
well.
scientist's lab was
Dr.
in
William
ruins.
Carter arrived
Computers
next.
smashed.
A data pad
Equipment
clutched
shattered.
in his hands.
But on the table
The
in front of him
bioengineer had been
sat
one
a
of the
glowing
leading
vial
voices
of dark
pushing
blue
for
liquid.
integration with the
The
Zelvari
concentrated
systems.
version of the
Now,
Zelvari's
his
biological
face was
agent.
pale. This
You
stuff
ran
isn't just
tests,
poison, Carter said.
Donovan said.
It's forcing
Carter
an
nodded.
adaptation cycle.
The enhancements
just too
they
slowly.
gave us.
Our bodies
At first,
are adjusting.
they seem beneficial,
but not fast
but
enough
I
to
analyzed
matter.
long-term
Donovan
effects.
clenched his jaw.
The compounds they
So
introduced
we die
into
anyway.
our food,
Not if we
water,
push it further.
even the air.
Carter held up a
cumulative.
syringe.
He looked up.
This is a modified
grin.
dose. It's
A
shutting
shock
us
to
down.
the system.
Slower
It should
thought
accelerate
processing,
the adaptation,
muscle degradation,
force our
immune
bodies
system
to compensate
suppression.
before the
The
damage
changes are
becomes
subtle.
permanent.
But over
O'Reilly
time,
frowned.
they would make us
Or
inefficient.
Carter hesitated.
A
Or
cold
kills
rage
us outright.
settled in Donovan's
A pause.
gut. The
The only
Zelvari
sound
weren't
was
giving
distant
humanity
gunfire.
a gift. The
They
battle
were
raging
preemptively
outside.
deploying a predator
Then
before
Donovan
it could
rolled
ever
up his
become a
sleeve.
threat.
Shoot
The
me
ground
up
shook.
document. An
Carter
explosion
worked
rocked the
fast,
far end of the
injecting
colony,
the serum into
followed by
Donovan's
the
bloodstream.
high-pitched scream
The
of
effect
an
was
alien energy
immediate.
weapon. Fire
The comms
surged
crackled
crackled
to
to
life
life with shouts.
Every muscle
Enemy
locking up
forces
as if
inside
hit
the
by an
perimeter.
electric current.
Civilians
His vision
scrambling
blurred
for shelter
and sharpened.
They weren't waiting
His
for the
heartbeat
poison
thundered
to finish its work
faster than it should.
They were striking now.
But beneath the pain
Donovan's
was something
sidearm
else.
was in
Clarity. his hand before the thought had fully formed. He stood flexing his fingers.
Get every
The fatigue
able-bodied
was
Marine
gone.
armed.
His thoughts
Hayes,
were sharper.
Get
It
your
was
birds
working.
in the air.
O'Reilly
He turned
let out
to
a low
Carter.
whistle. Find a
Well,
way
hell,
to counteract
if
this.
it's kill or
Whatever
cure,
it takes.
might
The
as well roll
soldier
the
and the
dice.
scientist nodded
One by
and took
one.
off. The remaining
Donovan
Marines
marched
took
the
toward the
injection.
command center's
Some
armory.
collapsed,
His heart
convulsing,
hammering with the
but
certainty
most
of what
got
was
back
coming.
up.
The
Eyes
Zelvari
burning
had
with
renewed
miscalculated.
focus. They had
Donovan
assumed
reloaded
humanity
his
would
rifle.
crumble under
We
their
end this.
slow-killing toxin.
Now,
But they had
the
failed to
Zelvari had
understand
spent
one
months
simple truth.
trying to break humanity
Humans
down.
had spent
They
millennia
had
poisoning
failed
themselves.
because humans didn't
Radiation,
just survive adversity.
alcohol,
They
narcotics,
adapted.
And
pollutants.
now they were ready to
Every
fight
era
back.
of human history had been marked by exposure to things that should have killed them. And yet they had endured, adapted, thrived. The Zelvari wanted to make humans weaker? They had only given them an excuse to get stronger. The Zelvari flagship trembled under the assault, but it wasn't falling fast enough. The alien warship was the heart of their invasion, its command structure directing the battle like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. If the humans wanted to end this, they had to rip that heart out. Major Jack Donovan sprinted down the curved corridors, his boots pounding against the shifting metallic floor. The ship's interior pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence, its walls slick and pulsing like living flesh. The Zelvari didn't build ships, they grew them. It made the place feel like the inside of a beast, and Donovan had no intention of letting it swallow him whole. Sergeant O'Reilly ran beside him, his face smeared with soot and blood. "We're sitting in the belly of the beast, sir," he muttered. "What's the play?" "We cut it open from the inside." Ahead, a squad of Zelvari warriors rounded the corner, their reptilian eyes widening at the sight of two blood-stained humans charging toward them. They raised their plasma rifles, but Donovan and O'Reilly were faster. A hail of bullets tore through the enemy ranks, the genetically enhanced Marines moving with impossible speed. The Zelvari had expected dying men, bodies too weak to resist the poison they had spread through the colony. What they got instead were soldiers who had adapted, pushed past human limits, and come out stronger. The last alien dropped, its scaled body twitching as green blood pooled beneath it. O'Reilly kicked one of the corpses aside. "I think I like this whole superhuman thing." "Don't get used to it." Donovan reloaded his rifle. "We don't know how long it'll last." They pressed forward, the corridors narrowing as they neared the command chamber. The walls here vibrated, alive with some unreadable energy. This was the brain of the ship, the nerve center. If they took it out, the Zelvari would crumble. The doors to the command chamber hissed open. Inside, the War Master stood waiting. It was larger than the others, its armor marked with deep etchings of past victories. A long, curved blade extended from each of its forearms, the edges glowing with a sickly green light. Its yellow eyes studied the humans with something like fascination. "You are wrong," it hissed in its native tongue, its voice a guttural growl. "You should be dying." Donovan stepped forward, gripping his rifle. "Guess you underestimated human tolerance." The War Master tilted its head. "We studied your kind. Poisoned you. You should have fallen." O'Reilly cracked his knuckles. "Yeah, well, we're used to stronger drinks." The War Master struck. It moved faster than any human could have reacted before the serum, but Donovan's body responded on instinct. He ducked low, the alien blade missing his throat by inches. He countered with a vicious uppercut, enhanced strength, driving his fist into the alien's jaw. The War Master barely flinched. O'Reilly fired his rifle at point-blank range, plasma rounds sizzling through the air. The alien twisted, one blade slicing through the weapon, cutting it in half. O'Reilly cursed and rolled away, just as the second blade stabbed down where he'd been standing. Donovan went for his sidearm, but the War Master was already upon him. A brutal backhand sent him sprawling, his body skidding across the metallic floor. His vision blurred, stars exploding in his skull. The War Master loomed over him. "Your kind is adaptable, but not enough." Donovan spat blood. "Wanna bet?" O'Reilly surged forward, knife in hand, and plunged the blade into the alien's side. The War Master roared, twisting to retaliate, but Donovan was already moving. He grabbed the shattered remains of his rifle, flipped it, and drove the jagged edge into the alien's throat. The War Master froze. Its yellow eyes, once filled with certainty, now flickered with something else. Disbelief. Green blood bubbled from its mouth as it staggered backward, collapsing against the control console. Its fingers twitched, reaching for something unseen. Then it went still. The ship shuddered violently. The control panels flickered, systems failing as the War Master's death sent a ripple through the Zelvari command network. O'Reilly clutched his ribs, breathing hard. "Tell me that did something." Donovan activated his comm. "Hayes, status." Captain Thomas Hayes' voice crackled through the comms. "Whatever you did, It worked. The enemy fleet is in disarray. Their ground forces are falling back. A beat. Now get the hell out of there. The ship groaned, its organic walls contracting like a dying animal. The systems were failing, the structure collapsing. Donovan grabbed O'Reilly. Move. They sprinted through the corridors as explosions rocked the ship, plasma conduits rupturing in a cascade of emerald fire. The docking bay was ahead, but their ride was nowhere to be seen. Then, with a roar of engines, Hayes' fighter came screaming through the flames, its hatch open. Jump! Donovan didn't think. He grabbed O'Reilly and leapt into the void. They hit the ramp hard, rolling into the cabin as Hayes banked hard, pulling away from the dying warship. Below, the battlefield was changing. Zelvari soldiers, once so assured of victory, now fled in chaos. Humanity had turned their own weapon against them, adapted to the unthinkable, and survived. As the burning wreckage of the command ship collapsed behind them, Donovan sat back against the cabin wall, breathing heavily. O'Reilly, still grinning through the pain, reached into his vest and pulled out a battered flask. He took a swig, then passed it to Donovan. The Major drank deep, the familiar burn of whiskey cutting through the taste of blood and smoke. Like I said, O'Reilly muttered, wiping his mouth. They poisoned our wine. Donovan smirked as he looked out at the battlefield, at humanity's battlefield. They didn't realize we were already used to stronger drinks.